Hello there. Welcome to Force Ghost Conversations. This podcast is your home for cozy deep dives into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is your host, Anthony King, and each week I will be joined by fans, creators, and believers in the principles from the galaxy far, far away to discuss the thematical elements from our favorite Lucasfilm properties. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2026, and welcome to the first episode for Force Ghost Conversations in the new year. It's crazy that we're here, and at the end of this year, 2026, will actually be our fifth year of operating here. I know we just celebrated 4 in November, but already have an eye towards the incredible milestone achievement that'll be 5 years. Crazy to believe that's a thing, and here we are somehow all these years later. It's crazy. I still can't fathom it. But anywho, thank you for joining us. Force Ghost Conversations, your cozy home for deep dive discussions into all things Star Wars and Lucasfilm adjacent properties. This is typically where we would do the Cloud City Gossip segment, but unfortunately, as far as I know, well, let me just say, I also pre-recorded this episode, so I don't know if there's any news that's taking place. I'm going to assume not because of the holidays and that people are probably taking time off to be with their loved ones, and just usually it's a down period for Hollywood in terms of announcements and whatnot. I also want to note that what you came here for this episode for in a larger introduction segment is to actually hear about our look back at 2025 with also an eye looking towards 2026 for Star Wars. We are joined by Dr. Greg Cass from Long Take Review, also from the uh, uh, Breakfast Pack over at Rebel Base Card. Man does many podcasts across the industry here, and we're thrilled to have him back on to have some more insights into the past and also the future here of Star Wars. So that's what you're here for, the main chunk of this episode. And this, like I was saying, this is where we would typically cover the news. But again, I don't think there is any. But I'm also assuming that. But with that, if there is anything that has dropped, I will cover that in our next episode where it's more closer to the release of, like, when I record this segment, closer to the segment actually itself when it comes out. You guys get what I'm saying here. You know the whole drill here. Anywho, thank you for listening to this episode. Again, if you want to continue the conversation, we have many ways that you can do so. First off, for just $1 a month, you can get access to a ton of Force Ghost Conversations goodies, and that is through our Patreon platform. We also have a TeePublic store, which is where you can buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. You get a t-shirt, a hoodie, a pillow, anything like that with a Force Ghost Conversations logo on it. You can customize it to the way that you want it to be, and it can be at your place in very quickly, very short amount of time there. I can attest the quality of the material is really great from TeePublic, so you won't miss out on that for sure. Anywho, we also have accounts on many social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky. If you just search for Force Ghost Conversations, we'll be there in some capacity, and we'd love to continue the conversation on those platforms with you there. All the links are included in the episode description here, so make sure you go check those out, and we'd love to chat with you on those platforms then. Anywho, let's get into our main topic discussion here with Greg, looking ahead to 2026 with also an eye back on 2025. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 2026. But before we fully dive into 2026, let's talk about where we've been, where we came from, and what the year of 2025 was for Star Wars and Lucasfilm. This is our year in review episode, and also with an eye looking forward towards the future. And to bring us into this conversation, we of course have a guest. And I said I because you may know him as EyeOnCanon, but it is Dr. Greg Cass coming back on the show from the Long Take Review and also Rebel Base Card Breakfast Pack. Greg, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations, and how are you doing?
It's so good to be back. The chair is nicely broken in and ready to go, and I'm excited to be here. And it's never a simple thing to spend a little time reflecting on where we've been and where we're going, and it feels good to get to share it. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And in putting the list of questions together for this episode, it forced me to actually look back at the things that came out over this past year. And you know, a year on paper doesn't seem like too much, but when you actually list out all the projects and things that happened over the course of this time, with a lot of it being centered in one specific a couple of weeks here in this year, it really felt like there was a whole year in a 1 month in many ways. But there
Mm.
was a lot in this space. It was, you could say, even an action-packed year for Star Wars. You know, it started off with the conclusion of Skeleton Crew. We celebrated Revenge of the Sith, went to a couple different animated galaxies through Visions, Lego, and various forms of canon, and celebrated all things galaxy far, far away with the and also enjoyed the whirlwind experience of Andor. Greg, how would you describe this past year in Lucasfilm Star Wars?
I think it was a solid year, though not one that, kind of broke records for all that was out. In a lot of ways, I think this feels kind of like the new normal.
Hmm.
Maybe with
Hmm.
the exception of they actually seem to want to get back in theaters,
Yeah.
release some Star Wars movies with their Star Wars movie company. So I think it felt typical in a lot of ways. For me as a fan, in some ways, it was like a little sad not to be going to Celebration, right? With
Hmm.
the celebration last year, it felt like we should get one in the U.S. this year, but they kind of surprised us all by keeping it international, which is great, and I think it's really wonderful that the international fans get that celebration as well. But it kind of felt like a quieter year for me as a fan,
Right.
compared to some of the previous. But that's okay. We can handle quiet years. Except I really like how you phrase that. Except for those 2 weeks where just everything happened.
Boy, it all came out all at the same time, and for those of us that stayed up late to actually watch all of Celebration,
Yeah.
it was quite a whirlwind of, oh, hey, Andor comes out on Tuesday, plus Revenge of the Sith is now in cinemas for a week, and Underworld, and everything else, like all that at once. And then, like, okay, I am still tired because I felt like I was jet lagged from staying up late, basically being nocturnal for a few days to watch all of the celebratory activities that were going on and keeping up with everybody on that front. And then, yeah, all of May, plus you and I are both in the academic space. May is a busy time for that
Yeah.
world, both in terms of grading and tests, finals, and commencements. And Andor
Yeah.
happened to come out, the final episodes, the week of my university's commencement at that time.
Mm.
So that was a whirlwind right there on its own front. So literally from the end of April all the way through basically Memorial Day was like the most condensed of Star Wars yet. Very busy for just the world around us in general too. So felt like a year was in that month alone. But crazy to think that, wow, we were starting this with a fun, wacky kid space adventure out on At and concluding it over here as we just talked about Visions a couple weeks ago. Very fun stuff across the board. And, I do want to give everything, or at least give the opportunity to give a lot of the projects that came out this past year their due space, because I feel like if I were to ask you what was your favorite project this year, the answer is going to be Andor, for many reasons. So we're going to give Andor its own space here, and let's kind of tackle that one right now, because noting that, like, the Andor of it all, if you will, do you think that this year will be remembered as the year of Andor overall?
I mean, let's not pretend for a second that I will be neutral on this question or or unbiased. If people have listened to my coverage elsewhere, and I kind of bend over backwards to cram it in anywhere. I think Andor will stand the test of time as one of the greatest Star Wars projects ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that lightly. I'm not prone to hyperbole, but I would take the 2 seasons of Andor faster than a lot of the movies, and I love the movies too, right? But
Yep.
like, I just think these episodes were something really truly special, and it mattered that they were coming out in this moment when a lot of people were feeling a lack of hope or a helplessness to the changes around them. And I think it just was the right piece of art at the absolute right time.
Mm-hmm.
And as we roll into the as we just finished wink, wink, the holiday season. That I think it was fun seeing a lot of people, sharing the art they created and the Andor gifts. I think every Star Wars artist has done a version of "I have friends everywhere," and it
Hmm.
it means a lot to so many people, myself included. And so I think Andor is really going to stand the test of time. I was really excited to see that Diego Luna got recognized for a Golden Globe. Of course, I
Yeah,
want Genevieve O'Reilly on that list.
it's a shame.
Stellan Skarsgård is in the Oscar race this year, which I think is in no small part because of he became so familiar to everybody through Andor. And so there's a lot to celebrate. And awards don't even mean as much as just the way it had an impact. So without a doubt, I mean, you're right. It would be silly to ask what's your number one and expect a different answer, but it really truly will, for me, be something I return to. I hope every year I get an Andor watch
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
moving forward.
Yeah, I yes and everything there, and I would say, yeah, it wouldn't be. I wasn't expecting you to say, no offense to Rebuild the Galaxy, but I didn't think you would say that one when pitted against Andor. I mean, Andor was just really prestige television. It was finally that thing that I think that the white whale that Disney Plus has been hunting for since it launched, and as we're getting more and more details about like how bloated the budget was for this thing, how much effort and material that they put into making Endor what it is, and frankly the release schedule too. Right, there was a reason behind that by getting it in by a specific date, not just because all three episodes kind of felt like a mini movie every week, but also to make sure that it could be considered for a round of Emmys rather than having to wait a full another year by which to be considered for a lot of those categories for things. So I guess my next question there naturally is, do you think that the gamble of Lucasfilm putting the majority of their eggs in this basket this past year, do you think that that paid off?
It's so hard to know what exactly Disney was looking for out of that show. I mean, if they were looking for Emmy wins and kind of like you're saying that awards
Mhm.
prestige and clout, I think they're probably satisfied but a little disappointed. I think as we saw, the best of the year list comes out from all TV critics. Andor was on a lot of those, but often
Mhm.
like in the mid part of the top 10, not the very, very top for
Yeah.
where a lot of us would put it. And,
Dang
and
Severance.
yeah, no disrespect to Severance or Pluribus, which kind of was the horse that just came out of nowhere to take the lead towards the end of the year. But I do think, I think it was seen as something different from Disney Plus.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm speaking particularly to what my co-host Jen, the population she lovingly calls the normies. That
Yeah.
these, if you think about people who just love television and who just watch shows, I don't think they care about a skeleton crew or an Ahsoka or definitely not a Mandalorian season 3 or 4. So I think it did break through, and I'm sure you had the same experience. I had coworkers and colleagues who would pop into my office and be like, "Are you watching this Andor thing? Like, it's pretty great. Like,
Oh
it's
boy,
not
am
just
I.
your nerd thing. It's actually good." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And there was a very funny night where we had a nothing serious, but a work thing pop up, and we all jumped on a Zoom from like 8 o'clock to 9. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I have to get off at 9. I have to go do an
I have
Andor
busy things.
podcast."
Yeah.
And somebody was like, "Hey, I'll just stay on." Like, yeah, just add the podcast on, and we'll continue the call. Which, it's very special when a Star Wars project does that. Early Mando did that too, when it kind of
Mhm.
broke out of the fan space to something that everybody was talking about. And thinking back after these 10 years now of the Force Awakens, those are probably the 3 times that's really happened in my modern fandom that everybody was talking about it, not
Positively
just
too.
fans.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, good point, good point.
Not in a negative way because spoiler for alert, we're doing some Force Awakens discussions too, and one of the questions that I'll have for our guests on those episodes, listeners, hopefully you've already listened to those episodes at this point, is that basically, I would argue like that as soon as the Force Awakens comes out to the day before the Last Jedi comes out is like the best grace period for
Mm,
Lucasfilm ever.
yeah,
There
yeah.
was such a positivity even through Rogue One. all the great speculation, unfortunately, maybe to the detriment of the Last Jedi, but they're just really good tidings, good feelings. Everybody was on board. Wonderful, wonderful era to be a part of the fandom. And then the Last Jedi comes out, and then boom, it all went downhill after that. But yes, I do agree with you. This is a thing to celebrate, a momentous thing in the Star Wars galaxy here, and just for getting a lot more time with Cassian Andor, finding out more about the lead up into Rogue One. It makes us look at Rogue One in a completely different way, which then therefore makes us look at A New Hope in a completely different way, and therefore the rest of the original trilogy and the rest of Star Wars after that point. So for something to come in like that and just completely change up the zeitgeist of how we interpret and reflect upon these incredible franchises, this franchise has been around for 50 plus years now. It's awesome. And I think arguably you could say, yeah, if their goal was to get Emmy recognition, they got some, and they got some wins. They Diego Luna is going to be on the red carpet for Andor, and he'll probably be doing some of the award circuit, and just trying to do the for your consideration for all those folks along the way. And maybe he pulls out a win. I don't know. It's highly unlikely, I bet, just looking at the rest of those people in that category. But his name will be read when they're pulling out that category, and it'll be great to see him there and to celebrate the fact that they got nominated for that, because a Star Wars TV show to this point hasn't been nominated for anything like that. So I don't know about the back end of like numbers for subscribers, which is really the bottom line that Disney, I think, is looking for here. But from a Lucasfilm perspective, I bet they're thrilled about getting some award recognition beyond just like, oh, John Williams getting an Oscar nom every time he puts out a score. Or the tactile visual effects nomination that ILM gets anytime a new Star Wars property comes out. But I think this was a big gamble for them. It's a Tony Gilroy success story. I think he has an open door to do anything he wants at Lucasfilm in the future because of this. You could argue what it did for maybe Kathleen Kennedy's career and all that. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about in a later episode about the Disney Investor Day from 2020, which one of the projects talked about that day was Andor. And we hadn't yet seen Andor to that point, just a little bit of a sizzle reel. And now, in hindsight, that might be the most exciting and most well-liked reviewed project that was announced that day to a large degree, or at least said, hey, it's actually happening. We're filming right now. Because I know it was announced in like 2019 with pretty close after the launch or announcement of Disney Plus, maybe even 2018 too at that point. But yeah, Andor definitely taking a victory lap around town, and it's great to see that be recognized as such, because it deserves it. It's a story with a timeless message, unfortunately, that we should continue, like you said, rewatch it pretty regularly so that it stays at the top of mind, so that we don't forget these things here.
Well, and I'll just pitch in my other job as a movie podcaster. I just want to say Andor inspired me to make sure I caught up on some of the other work of the Gilroys. And if people are looking for those, it's January. They need those movies as they don't want to go outside. I think we're at feels like -5 in Boston as we record. So Michael Clayton, Tony Gilroy's other movie he wrote, and Nightcrawler, which his brother Dan, who won the Emmy for, but both excellent movies and a lot of fun. So catch up on those Gilroys in your cold winter months.
Well, Greg, that's your cue to snowbird and then come on down where it's warm down here, where you're
get off planet.
You're encouraged to be outside when it's actually nice out rather than being god hot. But yes, this is our prime movie going time when it's nice outside. Anywho, aside from Andor, what other Star Wars project was your favorite this year and why?
All right, I'm going with 2.
Okay.
One on my list has to be Revenge of the Sith. It has always been my favorite of the 3 prequels. If you catch me in the right mood, Phantom Menace challenges it, but it was wonderful to have it back in theaters. I think these yearly releases, which maybe we're skipping next year, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but these yearly releases have been a pleasure, and it's been a lot of fun to get the new art and just have everybody out having fun. In this particular case, I really loved the little Hayden introduction and him continuing his victory lap, and to get it the modern blockbuster treatment with popcorn buckets and with big sound systems and screenings. it was really wonderful, and I saw it more times than is healthy. I managed my goal for the year, since we had 2 anniversaries this year. I met my goal, which was to watch Revenge of the Sith 20 times over the course of the year, and to watch Force
Gnarly.
Awakens 10. So I got them both done. Did not see it in the theaters 20 times, but I think a
Rookie
solid
numbers,
seven or
come
eight of
on.
those. So there are only so much you can do, with your stubs. So it was great. It was really fun to celebrate that. Here in Boston, we have a podcast up here, a great group of creators called the HoloNet Marauders,
Mhm.
and they rented out a theater for Phantom Menace, and then based on theaters are a little busier, they only bought like chunks of tickets this time, but got
Got it.
a group of a solid 25 or 30 of us
Nice.
their treat to go to Revenge of the Sith together. And they're big in the 501st up here, the New England garrison. So there was a lot of cosplayers there, and just a good time, and just being nerdy and just celebrating the franchise, and that way was great. So that's my first. Should I
Fantastic.
pause there? Do you want to
No, go
comment?
ahead. Yeah, go keep going to your next one.
And the second one isn't on your list, but a huge deal for me. Probably the second biggest deal for me in canon after
The
Andor.
Revenge of the Sith
Really?
novelization.
No, yeah. The end of the High Republic.
Yes.
And
Yep.
the High Republic has been a huge part of my fandom, really since the pandemic. And,
Mhm.
this was an initiative that I was really excited in the lead up to. And then, I think like a lot of fans, I fell in love with it when it started, and it
Yeah, yeah.
became a struggle to keep up at
I
times,
it sure
despite
is.
the quality of what was being released. But at there were 3 novels this year, plus some manga, plus a whole bunch of comics and so on. But it really wrapped up with Charles Soule's Trials of the Jedi, which was a fantastic endpoint for the High Republic. And I think it will go on. We haven't seen the end of the High Republic, but this is
Yep.
like the end of the initiative of the kind of big scheduled releases. And you know, it's hard to land a plane like that or land a spaceship, but I thought that novel did so, and I
Mhm.
think Charles Soule getting to do the bookends of the start and the finish was really great. And, he's been recognized at Lucasfilm for kind of how good an eye he has for canon. I wasn't
Yeah.
even trying for that pun. Uh, and so he, continues to shape a lot of story, and be a big part of what's getting created. And that's really exciting because I think, he has hit way more than he's missed, even if there's
Mhm.
some things here and there that I haven't loved that he's created. And the High Republic, I think, was a bold. You were talking about the gamble of Lucasfilm. This was a big gamble
You
on
can argue,
publishing,
yeah.
and it's very easy to imagine people of saying like, "No, this is dumb. I don't like this," and then being really in trouble with all they had planned for it. So I think it was a huge win across the whole initiative. I imagine we are probably less than 5 years out from them announcing some new version of this, where they go to
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
different time or space and just kind of figure out something publishing can do on its own without really worrying about the rest of the galaxy. And the way it ended up, it was so popular. Now the rest of the galaxy comes calling for this, right? And we've seen High Republic in video games, and
And the Acolyte,
lots of
yeah.
other novels, and the Acolyte, kind of pulling from what these creators created. So a huge win, and a big grand finale. I'm sad to see it go, but I think I've said in other contexts, I'd rather see it go out on a high note than kind of wither and die. So glad they got to tell the story they wanted.
Yeah, it's a goodbye for now, as I like to say, because almost I
Yeah.
think in New York Comic Con a few weeks ago, they did announce a few more comics that are coming for kind of some more bookends or epilogues, perhaps, if you will, to the High Republic mainline story here. But you're right, it is that's a failure on my part here a little bit because I didn't include like books, comics, video games, those kind of more adjacent canon things here. But those are certainly a part of the story and the lore of Star Wars. And you're 100% right in the fact that that was maybe one of the biggest swings that Lucasfilm has really taken in the new Disney era is this big swath of publishing initiatives that they've done since 2021. I mean, this is many people's pandemic. Star Wars
Yeah.
is the High Republic because we were getting a book of some sorts every 3 months we were getting
Yeah.
something, whether it be an adult novel, middle grade novel, or a young adult novel. um I mean, I've still got the last two on my on my bedstand right now. So there, I'm almost there. I'm almost finally at the end of it. But it is sad to see these characters go. And I'm glad to hear from your review that it hits the landing pretty well here. Charles Soule really got it off to a great start with Light of the Jedi. So I had no doubt that he would stick the landing here. But the characters are very much well a part of the Lucasfilm story now. If you go to a celebration, you're going to see people cosplaying in High Republic outfits. The era is clearly defined by what they did in this initiative, so much so that the Acolyte had to accept it as like it usually TV shows and movies primarily, and then TV shows define the look and feel of what the books are afterwards, right? That's usually the levels of canon, as people will talk about. But for once, the books were like giving the what then the Acolyte would have done. It's like the narrative, the language, the visual elements that made that era work. So it was awesome to have it from a different perspective there, and also to feel justified as a person that was reading all this stuff throughout the years, to feel like, okay, wow, it mattered what I was reading,
Yeah.
because I think that's a lot of the big complaint that people will have with a lot of stuff is like, oh, okay, well, I read that story, and then this now TV show comes along and they kind of somewhat retcon what was talked about in that novel from 10 years ago, and they're like, darn it, I really love that thing, I connected with it, and now it means nothing, or perhaps it
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything as much as it used to. Um, but for them to actually say like, hey, this matters, and Leslie Headland, to all the respect to her, read those stories and was like, hey, these rock. I'm keeping them in line here. I'm gonna even bring in some characters from this, and if maybe I'm still holding out, maybe one day the Acolyte comes back, who knows, um in some way, shape, or form. And they add more characters, because that was the plan, that she said, was to add more High Republic known
Yeah.
characters into this as we move forward here. um awesome, great suggestion there on that front. I can't wait to read Trials of the Jedi myself personally, and we'll do a full episode eventually on the full conclusion, on the full High Republic as we know it now. But like I was saying, a goodbye for now, because I feel like Michael Siglain and the Lucasfilm Publishing team are like, that's their baby, and they want to keep telling more and more stories there. It'll be a manga, another comic line from Cavan Scott, some other like George Mann tales of, or legends from the High Republic, or something like that story. Um, God, yeah, it's been great. I love, because we keep all the Star Wars books in our bedroom here, and um, the bookshelf is like where our TV stand is. So like I see that in our bedroom, and it's
Mm.
just like in canon order from phase 2 through phase 1 to phase 3 of all the books that we've read so far for this initiative. Both my wife and I have read it every step of the way too,
Yeah.
and it's
Pretty
just been
fun.
fantastic. So yeah, I see yours in the back there too.
Mine
Um,
are always visible, and I
always
have
been.
I have my Stellan lightsaber too because it means a lot to me. And I have to thank you. You initiated the handshake between myself and Mike over at Who's the Boss, and I got to wrap up the High Republic over there with him. So there's a great episode already for people to
Absolutely.
go listen to. So
Well, of course, I knew no one better to handle that conversation when he was like, "I need someone to talk High Republic with." I know somebody that's kept up with it. All right, so that was 2025, or kind of was 2025. But I guess one last question before we wrap that up and look ahead towards the future, as we're kind of looking toward the future right now. What key lessons or takeaways do you think Lucasfilm can take from this past year to make 2026 even better for them?
um I always like to preface comments like this. I don't like on the internet when dude bros tell Kathleen Kennedy how to run a movie studio, because we don't have her expertise and her knowledge. But so, as a layperson who does not understand the full intricacies of the business, I just pretend to.
Yeah, you're not doing budget
Um,
meetings.
I'm gonna link together, my three favorite things I just mentioned. So, Andor, Revenge of the Sith, and the High Republic, and say the thing those have in common in my mind is strong creators got to create, and they got to figure out the best way to tell the story they wanted to say. And yes, one of those is George Lucas on Revenge of the Sith,
Sure.
and he was at the kind of height of his powers when he could do whatever he
Unlimited, so
wanted.
to speak.
Yeah. and and I do think that's the lesson here. I really do believe that Andor was so good because Tony Gilroy was allowed to just kind of build what he wanted to build, and nobody came in and said, "Oh, canon this, canon that." Nobody came in and said, "Oh, you have to do this." He had some healthy constraints. I think,
Hmm.
he's
Hmm.
mentioned budget and so on, which is back to
Yeah.
George. George had a budget to work in, and that's part of what made Star Wars so great. But I think there was a period at Lucasfilm where things got done too much by committee.
Hmm.
And, I think again, I don't pretend to know everything, but when you look at the response to Last Jedi and then the way the Rise of Skywalker was shaped, it sure feels like they didn't trust people to be bold creatives anymore and just went
Hmm.
with what the internet wanted and what the internet said. And so I think if there's a lesson from these projects, and I would put the Acolyte in this, I would put Skeleton Crew in this. It's like have a bold vision and just stick to it. And some people will like it, some people won't, but it'll be a better thing because it's bold and unique
Hmm.
versus can you tell I'm living in a chat GPT world where like when we water everything down to the kind of basic expected pat answers, we lose something of the spark
A
and the
little
creativity.
specialty. Yeah.
So I think Lucasfilm, because I know you're listening, I know they post all
Right.
the time about your episodes. I think the thing to do is just trust your creatives, hire good people, and then let them be themselves and
Let them be.
figure it out from there.
Look out for the M dashes, as Greg would say when you're scanning for AI in your in the writing. That's a clear giveaway, in my opinion, because no one just puts those in their
No
everyday speech.
undergraduate just puts those in for sure.
No, no. They don't know how to grammatically do that, right? And most people don't. So it's an epidemic across the world for sure. Yes, and I agree entirely. I would like just in a different way. I think you can also like because Ryan Johnson kind of said that. I think I saw that quote circulating the last couple of days here, where he was like, "I want Star Wars to be more bold. I want the creators to not be afraid to take the risks. Like that's how things get stale. That's how they become stagnant. They aren't pushing the bounds of cinema, and that's what George was doing all those years. Every film he was putting out was like moving something forward. He was taking risks. He was not afraid to try. And frankly, when it is your money backing it up, right? You only have an audience of
Yeah.
one to please at that point. And now I understand with the Disney sale, they have a bit more of um, cooks in the kitchen, if you will. But I think Kathleen's done pretty much the best job as she can in keeping the figures at bay to allow the creators to be, as far as I understand. Darn you, Alan Bergman, for taking away my Ben Solo film.
Exactly what I was gonna say. And what we're really saying is let Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver
Yeah,
make their movie. But yeah,
when
we
those
can't say it
two
that way.
when those two come to you and say, "I have a full-fledged idea," and if the Lucasfilm story team is like, "Yeah, this tracks, this rocks," like
Yeah.
everyone was on board with it aside from one guy, and he was like,
Yeah.
"No, this isn't happening."
Insane.
Well, they have the script. It's in the archives, and as I imagine, there's going to be some leadership changes at the Walt Disney Company over the next couple of years here. Some jockeying has been done, and maybe the right person comes on board. That's like, yeah, let's do this now because they've maybe have seen the planes flying overhead that say make the hunt for Ben Solo. I will just say, from my end, there is that I think maybe the lesson to be learned is not to pack so much into a couple of
Mm.
weeks. It would be nice to like Andor alone would have just been fine over those couple of weeks, but it was also Revenge of the Sith plus plus what was it Tales of the Underworld plus Celebration. I feel like I'm missing a whole other project that came out of that same time frame. That just kind of Light and Magic season 2 missed out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, how can I forget? All that coming out within a span of 3 to 4 weeks was incredibly a lot. And I both remember the days of 2022 where it was Bad Batch kind of overlapped with Mandalorian season 3, which kind of also overlapped with Willow at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were a lot of weeks there with 2 episodes for a lot of things. So at least for what we were doing back at the time then. So that was a lot of coverage for stuff, and then for here, it just felt like, did they have to release Light and Magic season 2 without any prep during Celebration? Like,
Yeah.
did they have to? I guess because of Tales of the Underworld has to be on a May 4th drop, and Andor had to be done by May 30th so they could pass for Emmy consideration this year. Maybe some of those things could have been spaced out a bit better over the summer when there was not a whole lot else going on. And, that's maybe the takeaway there is space out the projects a little more. So maybe we don't have these like dead periods when this stuff is around. So, anywho, that's where I look at on that. All right.
I agree, and it's so weird because it seems anathema to the streaming mindset
It
because we
does.
all
Makes
could
no sense.
cancel. I mean, the diehards didn't, but a lot of people canceled Disney Plus in the end of May because everything had come out, and there wasn't that big draw for summer without really. I don't think there wasn't a Marvel thing at that point either, right?
No, because
Or
Daredevil had finished. And
Daredevil had finished, and Ironheart was
Ironheart was this summer. It was June, so maybe it was that like right after each other thing. But their
yeah.
market was really not
Eh.
strong for Ironheart, much like Wonder Man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
coming out soon.
I think so. I mean, the latest thing I heard from Marvel is that they are putting 4 different Avengers Doomsday trailers
That's the
on
thing they're
on
pushing.
Avatar.
Yep.
And it's like I said this to my wife. I'm like among the most diehard people left on Marvel Island, and I'm like, I'll see the one, thank you, and I'll be happy. Like
I'll see.
I
I'll be happy with the
really,
one I
I'm
get.
excited for that movie, but like I think a lot of us, and this is probably more with our other episode we want to record tonight. Like a lot of us have started to tune out of the preps, the like
Mhm.
previews and the trailers and like
Yeah.
getting oversaturated with marketing. And especially for something like Andor, I think I watched the final trailer one time and I was like, well, I'm not going to pick this apart scene by scene
Mhm.
and
Yep.
raise my hopes or change my expectations. I'm just going to enjoy it. And I feel that way about Mando and Grogu. I've seen I mean why I say everybody's doing that is they've recut that trailer a couple times and people don't really
Mhm.
do like extra episodes about it like they used to in the build up
Oh
and so
man,
on. So
TV
um
spots used to get their own episodes of
yeah,
podcasts.
yeah, and there could be like 4 on a good football weekend, and
Yep.
you'd be like, so yeah, I think it just shows like I think everybody's kind of in a space where, and it's a healthier space. It's like I'm going to see these things, so let me just enjoy them there. That's exactly
Mhm.
how I feel about Doomsday, and you're asking me to go to a 3-hour, 15-minute movie 4 times in 4 weeks. I mean, if
Well,
Avatar is
you'll be there. You
incredible,
can just use one of your stubs to just go to see the
and then
preview,
then
and then
wander
we're all
out like
proud.
old
Yeah.
Phantom Menace days. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not gonna. I don't know. I trust Disney knows what they're doing. They're smarter than I am. But I think in this moment where we see a lot of the old like reliable sources of income for Disney wobble, not
Mhm.
fail, but
Mhm.
wobble.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
splinter a bit.
they gotta be thinking more carefully about how they're hyping people up and what they're asking of us. So
We're talking about it now, but watch us like really like be wrong about like the strategy here. Maybe like the avatar of it all, just like it. Maybe the trailers are that great that it's like a
yeah,
FOMO. You
it
gotta
it could
see
be.
week 4 of the Avatar trailers here to complete your set, guys.
I mean, well, I was thinking like if they reveal some new character each
Mhm,
one,
mhm.
and it's people we haven't heard about, but like I'm not going. I'm just gonna wait for the internet to tell me.
Yeah,
Even if
yeah.
they don't release it on the internet, I'll just wait for the internet to tell me who else is confirmed or what have you. But anyway,
Well, time
wrong
will
show.
tell. Wrong show, guys. Yeah, this is Marvel conversations now. Thank you for adjusting to the change here on the fly. Uh, Anywho, looking ahead to 2026 now, the only major confirmed thing with a release date is the Mandalorian and Grogu, which is coming to theaters this May. There's also a strong possibility we will see the Ahsoka season 2, Maul, Shadow Lord, and the Ninth Jedi series this coming year as well. So, of these, which generates the most excitement for you right now?
I mean, it again feels like a cheat, but it is so wonderful right now to go to the movie theater and see a giant cardboard
Yeah,
standee
you
for
like
a
I like
Star
that too.
Wars
That's cool.
movie. And Disney has, at least in the theaters I attend regularly, they've installed big screens that just go through all the Disney and 20th Century Fox releases, and so
Doing everything they can to get people
yeah.
excited.
So, the Mando poster pops up on that screen and you just get to see, it's just a very bright projected version of what you see, in the lobby otherwise.
Mhm.
But it's great. And it's like, oh yeah, and the times this fall I have done a Disney or 20th Century Fox release. It's like a surprise when it's like, oh right, we're gonna get to see Mando here. And yeah, I've seen the trailer and it's there, but it's just nice to see Star Wars on the big screen.
Yeah.
Um, I think like a lot of fans, I maybe got complacent about Mandalorian. Like I still think it's fine. I don't think it's as high quality as when it started, and it's just never been the part of Star Wars that excites me the most. Meaning like the underworld is not that exciting
Sure.
to me
Yeah.
as Star Wars, but it's Star Wars on the big screen. I'm gonna go 10 times. Like, what else am I doing? Right. And my daughter, this will be her first new Star Wars movie in the theater.
Amazing.
So she's already talking about going with me, and my son will go along. So
Whole
it'll be
family
great,
endeavor
and
too?
it's there. No, the wife won't go. She'll just take the day.
No,
But no,
no.
she'll probably go once. But yeah, it's really, nothing beats Star Wars on the big screen. I actually, I wish I think the avatar of it all blocked the 10th anniversary of Force Awakens, but I
Yeah,
think they could have
probably.
made, an easy 50 million on a weekend release of Force Awakens
Mhm.
this past month. And so yeah, I think it'll be the biggest thing and it'll be the most fun thing of the year by far.
I'm gonna. I agree with you on that one. It's time, and the re-releases have shown that there is still the fervor to go see a Star Wars in the cinema, and I think this film will be great. It's got a lot of questions I think behind it, right? I think good questions that I have as like a film person that like is interested about the behind the scenes of film because this is the first time they're taking the volume technology and trying. Not, I know they've shot other films on the volume before this, but this is like they made the volume for this show and now they're trying to turn this TV experience into a cinematic experience. So what are they doing with the volume to revolutionize that so that how can that make other films even better moving forward that are cheaper and better to produce and all that stuff, more convenient for everybody and the actors and the crew involved. Like that's going to be a really interesting thing just personally to see. Um, but also, it's the big risk too of hey, the people can see these characters anytime they want as long as they pay $9.99 a month for Disney Plus. Are they going to go spend 30, 40, $50 to go with either by themselves with a group or with their family to watch this when they can probably just wait maybe 3 to 4 months and just watch it from the comfort of their homes like they've watched every single other episode of this story here. Um, it's interesting because I think the only apt comparison since the streaming wars have started, perhaps, is the Marvels, which did not do well box office wise. And I'm sure there's a lot of varying factors for one can explain for why. I don't think it was the big thing that people are complaining about where they're saying like, oh, there were characters from streaming shows and it felt like homework to know
Mhm.
everything about them because if you actually watch the Marvels, they do a pretty good job of quick recap of like what those like where their histories are of those characters and why they're involved here. Like it's very much detailed and explained, even though if you didn't know it, but if you're a person that like watch those shows, you kind of like eye roll like, okay, there's the quick backstory, get it moving here. I wonder if they're going to do something similar for the Mandalorian Grogu, where he's like, well, hello Grogu, it's been a great 3 seasons worth of adventures with you. Remember that little time that we were with Boba Fett for a bit? I don't know. Anything to plug like the synergy of go back and watch those earlier seasons on Disney Plus, or maybe they'll do like a highlights up like a couple of quick like Disney Plus will do like watch these and lead up to the
Oh
Mandalorian and
yeah.
Grogu. Maybe they'll do like a couple of 5 or 6 episodes to be like, oh, these are the ones you should watch leading up to the Mandalorian and Grogu. Um, it'll be cool. I'm
Or
excited.
dare I say it, put them out in theaters. Do
Yeah,
like a
do a
three
lead up.
week go to the theater, see some highlights. What else is coming out in April? Do a little something there.
What else is coming out? I don't know. It always just like come. I'm sure when I can see Avatar that it'll tell me what's the next big adventure films coming out over the next 6 months. Like every big movie is going to have a trailer attached to that. That's
Yeah, definitely.
worthwhile probably to see, or at least every big blockbuster that's trying to hit 1 billion is going to at least try and get the most eyes in front of it as possible, which we'll be putting in front of Avatar. So I think this will be fun. It's gonna be great. I wonder what the budget is for this thing. It's gonna be interesting to see what the real marketing stretch is for this thing. Are they gonna do some lead up to it? I don't know. And then of course the big thing will be, what is the box office? That's gonna be a big conversation around this thing. Right? Can Star Wars stay with that isn't a Skywalker saga connected film that doesn't have a lightsaber at the front and center? Is the Mandalorian, is Grogu the the merchandise machine that is Grogu? Is he enough to get people butts and seats in cinema? I don't know. These are big questions that we'll have to answer in a couple months here. So we'll see. I'm excited for it, and I think it's going to be fun to get first off to see a new Star Wars again in the cinema.
Well, and I think you're right to note, the questions around Marvel have been how much does the streaming affect it, and then the other comparison is Pixar, which has really taken a hit
Struggled,
in the way
yeah.
you were describing, where I think a lot of people, I'm not saying Elio looked phenomenal or Elemental looked phenomenal, and Elemental was eventually very profitable,
Yeah,
but a lot of people see those trailers and they're like, "Oh, cool! My kids will check that out endlessly in 6 months," like you
yeah,
said, and
absolutely.
it's been hard to motivate people to go out and see particularly new Pixar properties there. So I wonder about that. The other thing I keep reminding myself is it's again, I'm not, the initial teaser didn't set my heart afire, but it had some good things in it. It's also important to remember it is Jon Favreau directing, who's like
Right,
has a
right.
good track record of good big screen adventures, and even some of his misfires like Cowboys versus Aliens.
Yep.
But like it had good action in it,
Good
even though it
fun.
was
It's
probably like
literally
a
called
silly
Cowboys versus
movie.
Aliens.
Yeah, yeah. So I do think he's coming in with not like he needs to prove himself, but like he wants to have some fun and do a little more with this set of characters he has helped steward. So that's exciting. Hey, speaking of Avatar, Sigourney Weaver playing
That's right.
somebody
That's right.
seemingly her own age and not a preteen. Let's do it. Let's have a good time.
However old that character is, Kira, Kawa, whatever. I don't remember. Avatar character Jake Scully is the main guy. That's all I need to know. But yeah, she's age appropriate Sigourney Weaver, and actually Sigourney Weaver in Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm excited. It'll be a good time. May 2026. Mandalorian Grogu in your local cinema. Go see it or be square. Um, Lastly, Greg, here, what do you think the state of Star Wars in 2026 indicates for the larger entertainment world moving forward? Now, that's kind of also a little bit maybe ties into the conversation that we were just having here a little bit, but any other thoughts about what you think that this spells for the larger conglomerate that is media?
Yeah, we're in a weird moment, I think, without a doubt. And, we've talked about this. I feel like every time you and I talk across whatever show we're on, it tends to somehow link back to like this big disruption of streaming, and the new equilibrium we're trying to find is a big question mark. And,
Yeah.
in a recent long take review, we talked through a lot about the big mergers happening over with Netflix, Warner Brothers, and Paramount, some combination thereof to be determined. Maybe there are better answers by the time they're listening to this, but very much up in the air. So I think as I look at the state of it, I think it's getting harder and harder to get people out to theaters,
Mm-hmm.
and companies are thinking about what that means now for the business model. And I think Disney continues to say if we can have these like 2 or 3 giant tent poles each year that make the $1 billion, that this year has been a little rocky for them, but the Zootopia,
Yeah, Zootopia
Fantastic Four.
solves all problems.
Fantastic Four, I think, did well enough. The Thunderbolts did well enough. I mean, down from the heights of Marvel, but
Mhm.
enough to kind of keep the company puttering along. I'm not talking about you, Tron Ares, or some of their other misfires this year, but
Ella
I
McKay.
think that I think this just means they're gonna kind of continue to try to have those and hope that they kind of get lucky on some of the other ones. Um, to take your bait of the larger industry, I think the big winner of the year is Warner Brothers by far.
Hmm.
And what's most striking is how many of their successes were original new stories, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So we'll set aside kind of Superman that made about what you'd expect a Superman movie to make no matter what, right? Like it's a very established character who showed up again for the first time in a while. It's going to do well, but they really hit it out of the park with Sinners, and respective to their size, one battle after another, and weapons. They weren't $1 billion, but they did good business. That's a little more debatable on one battle after another, but as it
It's
marches
gonna
clearly,
march towards, yeah, the fourth
yeah,
season
towards
here.
the best picture, it'll definitely be profitable. So I think I would hope that Hollywood is seeing those and saying, like, okay, let's find a price point that we're comfortable letting some creator go off and do their own thing. Or Ryan Coogler got a very special kind of arrangement where Warner Brothers is essentially leasing the movie for 10 years and then giving it back to him.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if we can come up with creative ways to get some of those there, I continue to think straight to streaming is a bummer, and I will say I live in a very privileged area. So Netflix this year, I've seen all the major Netflix releases on the big screen because they'll put it out here for a couple weeks now. That's a privilege I think more people deserve, and I don't think it really hurts their streaming business if people want to go see Wake Up Dead Man on the big screen and then watch it a week later at home. I
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
they do just fine. So those are some of the bigger trends going on. It's all up in the air. I think there's a lot of anxiety in the critic class about will we have movie theaters? What they'll look like in 5 years or so. But I think what I get most heartened by are things like the Revenge of the Sith re-release, where it's actually really high on the domestic box office this year. I think it's in the top
Crazy.
30 maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like the theaters were packed and people had a good time. And every time, if we weren't recording tonight, I'd be at The Shining in IMAX, probably where I'll be tomorrow night. And the every time I look to see if there are seats, it's a moderately filled theater for a 45
Mm.
year old movie that hasn't had a big marketing push. I haven't seen a single ad telling you The Shining is out. I happen to notice it on an app. So,
Yeah, I haven't seen
um,
it at all.
yeah, so I think there's a lot of love for movies out there, and people do love the theater experience if we can make it cheap enough, and if we can make these events feel like events. So
Yeah, do you think maybe that's the state of the industry moving forward, is arguably more like tighter windows of things, more premium experiences of like bigger screens, like the hoopla surrounding all things, like perhaps the days of a film being in theaters for 4 to 6 months is long gone, and it's just like,
yeah,
hey, you got to hit it for this 1 week that it's in, and like make all the money you can while you can.
I mean it's interesting because there are also some counterexamples this year. Sinners came out in April and then came back out around Halloween and have done a couple other
I
weekends.
think it's coming out like next week again.
Yeah, yeah, and I think again, there's this sense that this was a good one to see big and loud, and so they'll keep kind of putting it back out. I would also point to F1, which was
Mhm.
a moderate success, but certainly a big IMAX movie,
Yeah.
and that just hit. Apple paid for that one, and that just hit streaming on Apple TV Plus last week. A full 6 months, or darn close to 6 months from its theatrical debut. And now I don't think people have been seeing F1 like all through September and October, but I do think Apple saw the value, in keeping it there or at the
Mhm.
the POV level, so that that's not right, pay per view,
PV
not POV.
PVOD.
Yeah, PVOD, PVOD, to make some more money off of it, and I think that's great. The one thing I'm really hoping the industry changes on is I want some physical media again. I
I
want
think that is
more
yeah.
releases. We just sang the praises of Andor season 2. My season 1 box set looks very lonely without its sibling sitting next to it. And
Yes.
and as I talked on our Visions episode, being one of the plebes on the ad tier now, it stinks to watch some of these things on Disney Plus. Is there's just too many ads. So yes, I should pay the few dollars, but I'd rather get like a nice 4K of the things I really really love. Criterion today announced Killers of the Flower
Yeah, that
Moon
was a
is
big
coming
one.
in March, so we got hope. I think they're seeing that maybe even just specialty discs still there's a good market for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, like, we were watching this past weekend Wake Up Dead Man, and we watched Frankenstein as well. And we're on the ad tier for Netflix, and did have one ad the entirety of the time. So like, they were grateful or great. We were grateful for that because we were curious, like, oh, are they going to give us an ad every 10 minutes? Because these are the big hot releases that they're
Yeah.
in the top 10 of their films on that platform, and very much in the buzz of the award season, and didn't have it. So, grateful for that. But I know your Visions experience was quite the opposite of like it's
Yeah.
a 15-minute short, and yet there's like every 5 minutes there's an ad break. And you're like, well, this is chopping things up here a bit more than I expected it to be.
Well, and I agree on Netflix, except then today I threw on The Patriot because I'd
Oh,
never seen The Patriot, and it was
what?
like every 10 or 15 minutes there was there were so many more ads. So it very much feels like it has to do with licensing agreements and different films. So yeah,
Whoa,
Patriot
whoa,
was great.
whoa, whoa,
I had a
whoa,
good time.
whoa,
I know I
whoa.
should have. And I've already bragged live on this show about how the screenwriter of Saving Private Ryan, who is the screenwriter of The
Yes,
Patriots, is from
yes.
my hometown. So I remedied it. It was excellent. I had a great time. I'll probably watch it again in the near future. So
Why? Why haven't you seen? You're a fan of early American history. Like there
I
aren't many films about that era.
I think the answer is I was really trying to piece this together with my wife. I think it was
Has
that it
she
was
seen it
our
before you?
No, she hadn't seen it either.
Okay.
I do think it's because it was R-rated, and so it hit just at the age where I couldn't see an R-rated movie by myself.
You didn't see
So,
it like
like,
on
my
TNT on a Sunday afternoon?
no, I never caught it there, and, then you go from I was probably not old enough, and then you get into the really dark parts of Mel Gibson's career
Oh, well,
where,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you
so
didn't want to support
and
him.
not
Yeah,
that
I get
he's
that.
totally redeemed himself at all or,
He has not.
but yeah, so I think that's probably the answer is I couldn't see it, and then I was turned off by that, but it was good and
There was a
good young
secret
Keith
John
Ledger.
Williams score that you were missing out on all this time.
Yeah, one of the top Letterbox reviews of it was like, "This is the all-timer for the Letterbox or sorry, for the John Williams scores, and people don't appreciate it."
Well, I
So,
will say Jason Isaacs is arguably one of the best villains of all time in that movie
yeah,
as Colonel Tathington. Uh,
it's right up there with the Grand Inquisitor.
he really is. I mean, wow. It's funny because I'm quoting that movie all the time to my wife. We both love The Patriot. I'm glad you're finally caught up to Patriot talk now. We could finally geek out about that. I didn't know that was like, wow, that was like the biggest thing you
Yeah,
were missing in your film canon right now.
it's true. Well, and I
Wow.
gotta get Munich in before the end of
Oh,
the year because
Munich.
that's my last
What?
Spielberg still. I'm getting
Oh,
there.
oh,
We'll get there.
Greg, Greg, Greg. Get that letterboxed video store up and running, and
Yeah.
rent Munich. That's your New Year's Eve right there. It's Munich.
I think that the hindrance on that one has been when my wife and I sit down for a movie, she sees 2.5 hours and is like,
She goes,
let's find a
no,
90-minute one. Let's find a
no,
little
thank you.
sunshine. So
Secret Life of Pets it is. Oh, well, anywho, Greg, this has been a fantastic look at both 2025, but with an eye towards the future of 2026. Where can the folks find you if they want to continue the conversation or just to wish you a happy new year?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Always good to reflect, always positive, and I hope, your listeners are reflecting for themselves about what they loved this year and what they would take as their lessons for the company or for themselves as a fan as well. People can find me on social media anywhere I am. I am EyeOnCanon, EyeOnCanon, although not the podcast EyeOnCanon, which I
Nope.
have
Nope.
recently been tagged a bunch where people are like, "Oh, this podcast recommended my book." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." So just EyeOnCanon, and Over on the long take review, we are in the heat of the Oscar race. So I know, again, probably people are spending their cold winter nights catching up on these awards movies, and we have reviews up of so many of the big contenders this year. And you know, if I were doing the year end review over there, I would say it's been a great movie year.
It has been.
I was just today working on my top 10 of the year, saving a couple spots to see what Avatar
Just in
does,
case. Yep.
and such.
You
But
got Ellen McKay to watch too.
and a couple foreign films I got to catch up on too. But it's been a really good year for movies, and we got you covered over there. And we appreciate this relationship that's grown between Force Ghost Conversations and Long Take Review. And if you have to have Jen and PT on from time to time, I understand. You can take them away. So thank you.
Of course, of course. It's always a pleasure to have any member of the Long Take Review clan on. And of course, it's wonderful to have you on, Greg, as well. So thank you for spending some time during this movie going season. It's in cold North New England. Movie theaters are a warm place. They turn the heat on, folks. It's free heat. Just go use your pay your Stubbs membership, and you can get four times a year, 4 times a week that you can experience heat. I always think of like back in like the 20s and 30s and 40s when air conditioning wasn't as popular, but movie theaters had air conditioning, so it was a big drive for a lot of people just to get out of the heat and go see a picture.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not above it. I still do
hey, I
it.
tell you, down here in Florida during the summer, it's we got things to do. Might as well go see a movie while we're out and about, and it's pretty better out inside than outside sometimes. So it's been a blast looking back and looking ahead. And folks at home, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you've enjoyed this and hope you're having a great holiday season. And Happy New Year to you all. Thanks again. And we'll be back in your feeds next week with a brand new episode. And until then, may the force be with you. Take care.